Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Debate Aya program, and I'm your host Tariq Khan. We have since 2 decades and after 9/11 incident, not only in the United States of America but all in the Western region, Muslims became the victim or target of hate, anger, violence, and racial discrimination in the form of Islamophobia, especially during the President Trump administration when he blocked some Muslim countries relating them to terrorism and security concerns. So, according to the recent reports of United Nations Human Rights Council and Gallup and other famous international institutions, surveys and reports revealed that Islamophobia is rising, especially anti-Muslim sentiment in the West. So today we'll discuss this rise of Islamophobia in the world and the strategies, steps, or response adopted by the Muslim world or Muslim leaders to combat or counter the Islamophobia in the world. So today, Ms. Bakhtawar Pervaiz has joined us from Islamabad. You are research associate and political scientist from the International Institute for Global Strategic Studies. Bakhtawar, thank you so much for joining the Beta Year program, and you are most welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Bakhtawar, how would you explain what are the reasons for the rise of Islamophobia in the world?
Actually, Islam has been facing many challenges for many years from the wider world, and every Muslim is considered as a terrorist. So there are many reasons behind this major issue. So first, we can say the double standards of Western states that have directly contributed the rise of Islamophobia to alarming levels. And in European countries, mosques have been facing all sorts of harassment, and they are being targeted. So anti-Islamic expressions like languages has been adopted by some of the most influential people and in the world that has also fueled this part. So meanwhile, it is recently reported that there is funding of the institutions publishing misinformation about Islam and Muslims. Unawareness about Islam and its commandments by Muslims and non-Muslims is also one of the biggest factor behind Islamophobia. So if we talk about this particular issue, last year a report from the United Nations highlighted the issue that highlighted the issue of growing Islamophobia and excessive surveillance of Muslims in countries around the world. And even the United Nations Human Rights Council the report says that the government around the world do more to combat Islamophobia. And the special report officially titled Countering Islamophobia, Anti-Muslim Hatred to Eliminate Discrimination and Intolerance based on religion or belief, notes an overall rise in Islamophobic incidents around the globe. So the rise of Islamophobia has been driven in part by local conditions in individual countries and regions in which underlying issues such as class and ethnicity often also played a major role. So the rise of far-right groups is another factor driving an increase in hate towards Muslims. So, in spite of this, media propaganda is another major factor, major reason. So, according to the reports, media plays an important part. And around the globe, negative and one-sided portrayals of Muslims in the media have contributed to the rise of Islamophobia. And around the world, Muslim women are more likely to be victims of Islamophobic attack than to men. So overseas Muslims and women, especially women who are wearing hijab, are more getting hatred than men. So rather than this, nowadays the world is facing many challenges, including the threat of Islamophobia, which is rising day by day. And the Islamophobia is basically an unnecessary and baseless culture of fear against Muslims and Islam. For example, we can take it as we can link it with the recent event in India, which was a controversial statement that was given by India's a member of India's ruling party, Nupur Sharma, has angered many nations, including the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Later, she was suspended from the party in June 2020, like in recent year, on her remarks over Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this event or such events that Islamophobia is on the rise. Such events indicate basically the rise of Islamophobia in the world, which has serious repercussions not only for the Muslims but is also the major concern of non-Islamic states. So the hate against Islam and Muslims is not new and has its roots in historical events such as the Crusades and early interactions between Muslims and the West, and the event of 9/11, obviously. So if we look at the beginning, the concept of Islamophobia flourished during the European colonial era and then returned in full force after in 2001 and the 9/11 incident, when the infamous war on terror began. So the threat of Islam became a broader ideology and even officially found its way into French dictionaries, like describing it as a special kind of hatred against Muslim communities. So, uh, so since September 2001, many Muslim communities have been facing a growing hostile environment and characterized by ignorance, hatred, and physical and even verbal abuse. So, in short, while Muslims were considered leaders in previous centuries, but now Islam is considered as the internal enemy. Europe, in the United States. This Islamic terrorism is sadly used by many leaders, which is the main reason for Islamophobia. And for example, the statement by President Macron, which was really hurtful. So it is now such events, and it is getting worse day by day for a common Muslim to travel abroad. And Muslim leaders, I don't know why Muslim leaders are silent on this rising issues and negative in the world, and no one means not a single Muslim country checked on this, and how this religion is silently linked with terrorism, nobody questioned, and unfortunately nothing has been done so far. So although the heads of the countries I think should have taken a stand on it and should have come together and take some actions. So
Bakhtawar, what steps, strategies, and response the Muslim world has the Muslim world adopted so far?
I think it is really sad, and I'm sad to say that no Muslim leader has taken any solid steps so far, except former Prime Minister Imran Khan. So we can look into some of the strategies and steps which were adopted by Muslim countries, like as when the statement came by President Macron, French President Macron, against following the killing of teacher at school and defending the sketches insulting Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which has caused a rift among Muslims across the world, triggering a campaign to boycott French products. And surprisingly, he received an immediate backlash from the Muslim world after his statement. So the French government attitude against Muslims has led to an increase in Islamophobic acts and racist attacks in the country. So throughout the Muslim world, some leaders have condemned France and Macron, and including Saudi Arabia and Iran, they have also condemned it. So in recent times, Muslims in France are facing challenges, and because of ongoing situation in France, it can be assumed that Islamophobia is on the rise all over the world, and Muslims are facing, as I already said, the racism and discrimination, and even their lives are in danger. So after Macron, so a Muslim world reaction was a bit better than the previous one. So better than after 9/11. So President Macron has been under attack by the Muslim countries after his statement. So the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, is the most important religious figure for every Muslim, and any visual depiction is forbidden in Islam. So the Muslim countries, especially first Pakistan, has given a very positive response and condemned this his statement. He said, former Prime Minister Imran Khan, he asked the social media giant Facebook to ban Islamophobia and ban hate speech against Islam. So then later, Mr. Khan has written a letter to the heads of all Muslim countries to make the West aware of the importance and value of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in their hearts, and to tell the world how painful it is for us to bear this. And again, and also the president of Turkey, Tayyip Erdogan, he has also criticized Macron's statement by saying that he needs a mental examination of his attitude towards Islam. And in addition, Turkey Parliament also condemned French Macron defense of criticism and said his comments were obviously a sick statement and that could cause a global rupture. So similarly, Malaysia has also condemned this statement, and Gulf countries like OIC, even the Gulf Cooperation Council Secretary General, he called Macron's words are irresponsible and said he would increase the spread of culture of hatred in the world. Also, the OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, has called on France to reconsider its separatist policies that target Islam. Similarly, Kuwait and Jordan, Libya also condemned his statement, which was a very good step taken by the Muslim countries. Later, the French products were being boycotted by different countries, including Pakistan, and also an Islamist group in Pakistan has protested to boycott French products. And a member of Tariq Khan Pakistan, it's a TLP group, made copies of agreement signed by at least two ministers. But the government indicated that the issue had been yet to be resolved, and it also did not confirm how boycott would work. So also in Bangladesh, tens of thousands of people protested, demanded boycott of French goods. So, the French Foreign Ministry was alarmed when the demands for a boycott increased dramatically, and the ministry issued a written statement calling for an end to the boycott. And such strategies really do work. So I think the strategies so far has been adopted by the Muslim world are good.
Bakhtawar, how do young people perceive Islamophobia? Do they really think this is a big problem? What is your analysis?
I think yes. In my opinion, I think our youth, especially Pakistani youth, they're inspired by Western culture. So with their language, with their attire, so they feel really ashamed by speaking Urdu, which is a sad thing. So instead of that, I think youth understands that the Islamophobia is basically a violation of human rights and a threat to social cohesion. young people are, of course, not immune to this. So young men and women are obviously affected when they become and abused. But just as importantly, they are also concerned by the gender. They know that this is a big issue which needs to be highlighted at different forums. So the fault lies at as we look into this matter. I think they think that so they couldn't work on this side and the positive image of Islam so far. So secondly, I saw they think that the RU they think that the remedy to this issue lies in the curing of the most basic wrongs that will start primarily for educating Muslims properly on what is Islam and its teachings. Secondly, educating non-Muslims about Islam should be a priority. This might be done through a mass international media campaigns and dispelling all the myths associated with Islam. Lastly and most importantly, Muslims need to work hard in their respective fields. In reality, Muslims want validation from the West about their religion and the way of living by doing nothing. And this is not going to happen, and Muslims need to wake up. This is the time. And Islam does not prohibit the advancement in life's outlook. Traditional Muslims need to also traditional Muslims, they need to understand this that this issue is rising, and we need to look into this matter. And though Pakistan recognizes the importance of ensuring the implementation of a global plan of action to combat Islamophobia, it also recognizes the need of an hour is to develop an Islamic counter narrative by Muslim states. So it will look into the consequences due to the rise of this issue. The hatred is increasing. The hatred is increasing even between Muslims and other religions. And recently, two Muslim women were women of Algerian origin. They were injured after being stabbed near Eiffel Tower and were insulted by European women because they are Muslims. So they shouted, those women shouted at them like to go home. So if a Muslim do such act, officials like the police, they call them terrorists. So but the same thing if a non-Muslim or a local in West do they call them mentally sick? And I think I don't know why they think that Muslims are all Muslims are terrorists, and whenever a non-Muslim commit any criminal act, he is only a mentally sick person. So why so much discrimination between Muslim and non-Muslims, and why doesn't the West understand that terrorism has nothing to do with any religion, not even Islam, any religion. So, and due to this, the Islamophobia industry is growing rapidly, and Muslims have experienced religious discrimination. So, the local public believes that Muslims will cause problems to a large degree, and it is not their fault. And extremist groups such as Al Qaeda are to blame for instilling fear in people's hearts. So another factor to consider is the media's position in exaggerating any topic for commercial benefits, and the recent actions of so-called Muslim terrorists in the United States and other parts of the world added a lot of more fuel to the fire that was already burning. And the stereotype of Muslims as bad or evil that was already being used by some Western governments got a stamp of approval from many people who are not aware of the facts. So I think youth know very well. So they're just hoping they're just looking towards the government to take some actions.
Bakhtawar, what are the steps taken by the former Prime Minister Imran Khan to counter or combat Islamophobia in the world? How would you analyze this?
Okay, first, I think I'm sad to say that Muslim leaders have not addressed this issue of Islamophobia so far. So, but on the other side, I'm very glad to say that the former Prime Minister Imran Khan is the only leader who talked about this issue on every forum wherever he got a chance. So, former Prime Minister Imran Khan, he has reshaped the image of Islam across the world, and even in the United States, he raised the voice of Muslims, all Muslims, not even Muslims of Pakistan, but all Muslims. He said that there are 1.3 billion Muslims across the world, and there are millions of Muslims living as a minority in other countries like in USA and in European countries. And he said they're always being attacked, and they were considered as a minority. So even Prime Minister Imran Khan highlighted that since 9/11, terrorist attack, Islamophobia has grown at a pace which is actually alarming. So he also highlighted at many forums that Islamophobia is creating a division in a society. Like if a Muslim woman wearing a hijab, it's becoming an issue in some countries, and people taking hijab that it is some sort of weapon. So even he narrated that in some countries a woman can take off her clothes, but she can't put on more clothes. No one has problem if she can take off her clothes, but they have problem if we put off our clothes. So this is happening only because of Islamophobia, and he has taken as far as his steps are considered, he has taken many steps to spread positive image of Islam in the world. For example, to promote the partnership and unity for strengthening the voice of Muslims, Muslim world. 48th session of OIC was held this year in March, and it happened only because of Imran Khan. And if you look into his past works, into his different works, on his direction, lessons about teachings of Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, had been made compulsory for the 8th, 9th, and 10th class, which was a great initiative in his tenure. And the single national curriculum for primary classes would definitely yield positive results. And Prime Minister Imran Khan had adopted a new foreign policy, no doubt, which helped to improve image of the country at the international level, and also on his actions and his work paid off as Pakistan presented a resolution at the 47th session of OIC Council of Foreign Ministers in 2020. A landmark resolution passed in the United Nations declaring 15th March as a day to combat Islamophobia. It was the day he also mentioned that why 15th March. He said that it was when the attack happened in New Zealand when a gunman shot more than 50 people in New Zealand in a mosque because he thought that mass shooting in the country raised his voice against the rising trend of Islamophobia at all international forums and including at the United Nations, and called on the global community to combat the challenge. So in January, we can say in Canadian Prime Minister, he also said that Islamophobia is not accepted at any cost. And Russian President Putin, he also said that insulting Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, does not count as freedom of expression, and insults to Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, are a violation of religious freedom. So, Islamophobia is basically a reality, and permanent representative of Pakistan, Ambassador Munir Akram, he told this to 193 members of assembly, he said that this issue is rising and it should be addressed. So Prime Minister Imran Khan, as we look into his steps, he was the first person in the history who raised this issue of Islamophobia at the United Nations and had repeatedly called for international attention and efforts to address it. And even recently, after his government, though he is not in power, but he is in power in Punjab. So he obviously he worked on it, and now the amendment recently, the amendment. Amended Nikahnaama requires the bride and groom to declare that they believe in the finality of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This decision to amend the Nikahnaama form was taken under the Chief Minister Usman before he stepped down at the end of the March 2020. And now we can see that the former Prime Minister Imran Khan's efforts finally paid off. And after becoming Prime Minister, he used religious preaching in his political rallies, and even after becoming after his tenure, he is preaching in political rallies and media exchange to attract the masses by initiatives like establishing the Rahmatul Lil Alamin Authority to make Pakistanis aware of the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So I think these were the great steps taken by Prime Minister Khan, and we need to appreciate him. He has done much good for us. So that's it.
Bakhtawar, thank you so much for presenting your valuable research and analysis on the rise of Islamophobia in the world and the strategies or steps taken by the Muslim world, Muslim leaders in the world, especially former Prime Minister Imran Khan, and how youth perceive Islamophobia in the world. Thank you so much again for your appearance in the Debate Aya program.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.